Well, for some stupid reason, during a recent interview, J.D. Vance, history's most disliked vice presidential candidate, repeatedly doubled down on some of his most controversial statements, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, they say never look a gift horse in the mouth. I don't like Donald Trump. I don't like J.D. Vance. I don't like the modern Republican Party, and so I want them to lose again and again and again and again and again, in perpetuity if need be, until they become a loyal opposition party. And then again, I still want them to lose because I prefer democratic, liberal, and progressive policies. That said, just as a student of politics, I'm really kind of perplexed by what the hell J.D. Vance is doing in an interview conducted earlier today on Meet the Press. So he's given a relatively softball interview, which does address some of his controversies, and he's given multiple off-ramps, basically multiple opportunities to publicly distance himself or to disavow really stupid, insensitive, controversial things that he has said in the past, which have come back to haunt him and help create his reputation as the least liked vice presidential candidate. But again, for some dumb reason, he chooses instead to double down, and I'm grateful for it because I want him to lose, but I want you to see these clips and bask in this perplexion with me together.
Talk about women voters more broadly. The Census Bureau estimates there are 22 million women between the ages of 20 and 40 who, for whatever reason, do not have children. What do you say to those women who hear some of your comments, including the childless cat lady comments, which you've been asked about, but who feel as though you won't represent them?
Well, I'd say, first of all, I will represent you. I want to be the vice president for the whole country, and I want to represent everybody. And yes, I made a sarcastic comment years ago that I think that a lot of Democrats have willfully misinterpreted. But what I've simply said is that I think that it's really a profound change that's happened in our country where we become anti-family, and I would like to change that. And I think if you talk about...
So not an apology, not to distance himself. He's blaming it instead on Democrats and those who interpreted it a different way than what he says he intended. Communication is a two-part process. I am communicating to you right now. That's step one. Step two is you all receiving what I say, interpreting it. So it's two parts, both are necessary. And I suppose, in theory, it's fair for somebody, especially somebody not running for office, to say, hey, listen, I clearly intended this statement to mean X. You interpreted it in bad faith to mean Y. You know, if I say I like pasta and you hear, oh, so you don't like deli sandwiches, that's a pretty bad faith interpretation. On the other hand, I'm not running for office. I'm not a politician. And also the example we're discussing, the many examples aren't quite so clear cut. So even if we want to generously give J.D. Vance the benefit of the doubt, which we're never going to do on this channel because he's a pathological liar, why on earth, as an elected official, would you want to blame other people? You interpreted it the wrong way. Well, he doubles down on it in this clip too.
Out a little bit, then you're calling it a sarcastic comment.
Sure.
And yet some women, and you got the feedback in real time, felt like it was a gut punch to them personally. Do you regret making that comment?
Look, I regret certainly that a lot of people took it the wrong way, and I certainly regret that the DNC and Kamala Harris lied about it.
But do you regret what you said, Senator?
Look, Kristen, I'm going to say things from time to time that people disagree with. I'm a real person. I'm going to make jokes. I'm going to say things sarcastically, and I think that what's important is that we focus on the policy. There are certainly going to be things that I say. If I'm elected vice president, people are going to say, well, I wish he had said that differently. I think it's most important to actually be the person I actually am and to say those sarcastic comments were made in the service of a real substantive point. This country has become too anti-family. It's too expensive to afford a house. It's too expensive to afford groceries. Donald Trump and I want to change that. And unless we get better leadership, we're not going to.
But again, just very quickly, given that people have told you directly, have spoken out, have said that they were offended, they were hurt by those comments, do you wish you never made those childless cat lady comments?
I think that it's much more important for me to just be a normal human being who sometimes says things that people disagree with. I have a lot of regrets, Kristen, but making a joke 3 years ago is not at the top 10 of the list.
All right, another.
I don't know if he wants to win this election. I don't want him to win this election, so I'd encourage him to continue speaking like that, please, more often. As a matter of fact, do more interviews and double down on that. But again, as someone, as a student of politics, I'm just really like, really? You know, I mean, this is not This is not an ambiguous controversy. It's not one of those things, well, is it controversial or not? No. J.D. Vance and the Trump campaign have been hammered relentlessly because of a myriad of statements that J.D. Vance said in the recent and not so recent past about women, about the LGBTQ community, about people who don't have kids or choose not to have kids or can't have kids biologically. And again, knowing that they're losing this election right now, that may change given the Electoral College and, the media ecosystem and all the various institutional advantages that the Republicans enjoy. But right now, as of this moment, they're losing. They're losing in the polls. They're losing in fundraising. They're losing in energy. Why on earth would you double down on these statements? And by the way, you all were never that particularly popular to begin with. Donald Trump never broke 50% approval rating, 50% favorability. He is a wildly unpopular candidate. You're even less liked than Trump is. You are far more disliked than Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Vice President Harris's running mate. You have on paper so many disadvantages, and you need to shore up your advantages. Why on earth would you say these things? People took it the wrong way. I regret that people misinterpreted what I said and that people lied about it. And no, I don't really, I think it's important for me to be normal. Bro, the major sticking accusation is that you are incredibly abnormal, that you are wildly disliked, wildly unlikable, very weird. You don't come off normal at all. And doubling down on this idea that, people who don't have kids are somehow an impediment or a threat to this country or mean and have less value than those who do have kids and can have kids. It's just really weird. That's not normal at all. And also, it's kind of strange for you to say, this country has become so anti-family. Your party is the single biggest anti-family political force in this country. It was your party that opposed an enhanced child tax credit created by President Biden. It was your party that refused to extend that enhanced child tax credit, which cut child poverty in half after it was passed with Democratic votes, despite your objections. It cut child poverty in half. You opposed it because you didn't want President Biden to have a political win. Then, when Democrats resurrected the bill just a few weeks ago and tried to pass it again, you didn't even vote again. You just didn't show up to vote, J.D. Vance, you yourself. You want to, oppose IVF, in vitro fertilization, family planning and from Planned Parenthood and all these other things. Your party has by far the worst track record when it comes to being family. You have a great talk. You have a great rhetoric about it. How much you love God and family and church and apple pie. But when the rubber meets the road and it's time to enact policy, you just have a much worse record on this than the Democrats do. So the whole thing is just really strange. And again, keep doubling down on it when Kristen Welker is like, hey, you sure you don't want to apologize for this and maybe walk it back? No. Listen, I'm a normal dude who makes comments about people who won't or can't have kids and how inferior they are to the rest of us. I mean, that has more political capital. It's just way more worth than, kind of a weak liberal commie apology, right? I mean, okay, buddy. Again, I want them to lose, so I say keep it up. It's just really strange that he's so stupid about this. Another clip I want to show you from that conversation turns to the 2024 election and J.D. Vance's cult leaders' vigorous attempts to sow confusion and doubt about the veracity of the upcoming election.
Move on to something that Donald Trump said in North Carolina and yet again Friday night.
Our primary focus is not to get out the vote. It's to make sure they don't cheat, because we have all the votes you need. You can see it.
Why is Donald Trump casting doubt on the election before it's even happened?
I don't think that's what Donald Trump is doing.
Well, that's what he's doing. That's what he says here. We need to make sure they don't cheat.
I think that what he's saying is that we want to pursue a set of policies in the Republican Party that make it easier for every legal ballot to be cast and counted, but make it harder for illegally cast ballots to be counted. Now, we can disagree about how many of those there are, whether there are a few hundred, a few thousand, maybe more, but just in the last week, okay, so Just in the last week, once in Arizona and once in Pennsylvania, there were major court wins that make our ballot process more secure and more effective. I think that's what Donald Trump is talking about, is we have to pursue, sometimes through litigation, sometimes through better policy at the state or national level, a set of rules that make sure every ballot is legally counted.
Well, it's very different from your message, which is you said, and I'll quote you back to yourself, we have to work as hard as possible to persuade Americans to vote for us. Are you on the same page as Donald Trump? Because, again, he seems to be casting doubt on the results of the election before it's even happened.
Of course we're on the same page, Kristen. We talk all the time, and I guarantee you, if you sat here and said, Mr. President, Donald Trump, do you believe that we need to do, that your campaign needs to persuade voters as much as possible? Of course he's going to say yes. That's
Why isn't he doing it? Why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you taking these opportunities to do that sort of thing when they're offered to you? I mean, my God, if anything, you could probably make the argument that Kristen Welker, who I think at best is a mixed bag running, Meet the Press, she is very often way too soft on Republican candidates. She's giving you every damn opportunity. She's practically, but she is almost directing you with those wands at the airport that they direct planes. And you are deliberately avoiding taking the opportunity to court more voters. Remember, the anti-Trump coalition was always, is now, and shall forever be smaller than the pro-Trump coalition. Donald Trump didn't win the popular vote in 2016. He didn't win it in 2020. I think it's fair to say that even if he wins the election in 2024, it won't be because of the popular vote. It wasn't the last two times, including the only time that he ever won in 2016. So why would we believe that Trump would say, of course, I've got to persuade voters, when he actually says opposite? He says he has plenty of votes now. He believes he's got more than enough to win already. And as a matter of fact, he has repeatedly publicly said that they don't have to turn out to vote. They just have to watch the other voters, people who vote against him, to intimidate them. Yeah, really weird and stupid interview by J.D. Vance. But to be fair, I don't think it's because his IQ is particularly low. I think it's because he has made the ridiculous decision of subordinating himself to a person who's indefensible. Being the world's smartest Republican politician is like being the world's smartest flat earther. At the end of the day, the facts are just so squarely against you that whatever raw intelligence you may have, you are in an untenable position. And so that's what J.D. Vance finds himself in every time he tries to defend Donald Trump publicly. What a loser. Also should be made fun of. Let me know what you think in the comments.